Hi, I'm Courtney. Welcome to Something Positive for Positive People. Today I'm here with 26-year-old Fleur in Australia. She is in marketing, Caucasian female who is heterosexual and just broke out of monogamy. Is that right?
hmm Yeah, that's
So,
it.
wait, let's start there. So, you said you used to be in a monogamous relationship and now you are what?
So polyamorous.
Okay.
So poly meaning many and amorous meaning love. So basically multiple partners. I myself have one partner, a male partner, and he has another girlfriend, another female partner, and yeah, she has another couple of male and female partners as well. So I'm kind of part of a poly web. Um, but I'm not exactly sure where I sit on the poly monogamous scale myself at the moment. It's all exploration, all fun.
So that makes sense about the amour, because amour means love in French. Is it French or is that Spanish? I'm bad with languages.
I think so. I'm pretty sure it's French. They have a
Mi
word for
amour.
everything.
Yeah, it's got to be French. I didn't know that that was what it meant. I just thought polyamorous is like many amorous. I never ever made the association with it being the word love.
Yeah. So
So,
that only started last year, and it's been a really interesting experience. But I'm really enjoying it so far.
oh, what made you explore it?
Pretty much, I fell for a guy who was polyamorous, and I basically have done a lot of learning and a lot of reading and had a lot of experience, I suppose, in the last year about what's involved with a polyamorous dynamic widely, because it can involve many people. And I felt really comfortable. The people that I'm with in this poly, my metamors, so the partners of my partners, are very communicative, very lovely, and very, very honest.
Oh,
So yeah,
na-
it's been a good fit and very fulfilling.
so obvious question. Do
Mm.
I guess they feel okay about you having herpes, but do they have it as well, or is it a mix of people who do and don't have it?
No, none of my current sexual partner, so my male partner is my only partner. Um, None of the others have any sexually transmitted diseases or infections. But it was a consideration, I was told by both, um, yeah, my male partner and his other female partner, that it was a consideration that they consulted everybody in the poly before actually, I suppose, going further with me if they were comfortable with the fact that I had an STD,
Okay.
having herpes, and whether they were basically okay with any risk that was involved with that.
And which
So they
type do
weren't.
you have, and how long have you had it?
I have HSV2, genital herpes, and I've had it for just about 6 years now.
Did you say 10 years?
Six.
Oh, six. Okay. I was like, damn. Did you say you were 26? Okay. That would have sucked to get it at 16.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, take us back to that point in time when you were diagnosed. How did you find out you had HSV2?
I contracted HSV2 from a sexual partner, a male partner that I'd only been dating for about 2 to 3 months, and really he didn't disclose to me until something was very evidently wrong with me, basically that I was showing the physical symptoms of herpes, and we had that conversation, and that didn't really go well. And that very shortly thereafter led to the breakdown of our relationship, and a pretty rough time for
Yeah.
me. So
How did the
yeah,
conversation go?
I can't remember very clearly, but I remember it was a phone call,
You called him?
and the way in which it was delivered, I talked about feeling a bit kind of unwell, a bit fevery, itching, I suppose, as well. And he's like, "Oh, by the way, like you should know that I have this, but like, and I'm having an outbreak right now, but you'll be fine."
That's
But
what
I wasn't
he
fine.
that's what he said to you?
Yeah.
So he didn't tell you until you began to show visible signs. At this point, you hadn't gone to the doctor yet, right?
No, I hadn't gone to the doctor, and yes, he only told me when my physical symptoms were showing. So
Mm-hmm.
really, he told me too late,
So
which was
after you told him, did you ever make it to the doctor, or how long did it take you to go, if you did go?
I can't remember too clearly, but I was basically at that point in and out of the doctors virtually every week or a few days kind of thing. And then, I had to have, blood tests and swab done, and had to wait a week for the results. And I got the results, and I still remember that moment so clearly. And I remember calling then partner after the appointment, and I remember feeling bad that he would feel bad. I didn't feel bad for myself, or I suppose any anger that I was lied to by him. So it was a very strange experience, my
Was it?
diagnosis that day.
Did you kind of feel like, well, even though you knew it came from him, like,
Mm.
were you upset with yourself for contracting it?
I felt upset that I was giving bad news to him. Um,
What?
and I suppose at the time I really, really liked him, and I didn't want it to affect the relationship. But yeah, I felt bad. And like, oh, like, yeah, I felt like it was my fault
Mm-hmm.
as well. But I, I, I was where I was
You
at the
know
time.
now that that was not your fault, right?
I know that was not my fault,
Well,
and it took me many months to actually get to that point of anger, realizing the feeling that I had not been politely or properly disclosed to, or being given the dignity of honesty and openness.
mm-hmm.
And that kind of, not kind of, it fully spurned me with every single guy I dated or sexual partner I had after that, to be honest and to not be that guy and what he did to me. I have never had sexual contact with a person and not disclosed to them,
Right.
regardless of whether that's, whatever base or whatever degree. I've always disclosed, and I've never wanted to be that person that he was to me.
Yeah. Did you guys continue the relationship, or was it ended after your diagnosis?
We continued for, I think it was another few weeks,
Oh, that
and
didn't
then,
last as
yeah, he
long near as
finished.
I thought it would.
Yeah, and what really turned the knife in that experience for me was he broke up with me. He came to my house and broke up with me and said that the spark had disappeared for him. And I was in a very vulnerable state at that stage, and I remember bursting into tears and saying that, you've given me an STD, you've given me herpes, you've done this to me, and now I'm single, like, basically, like, get out of my house, fuck you, and get out of my house, and he
Yeah.
did.
Wait,
So
you can't curse on this podcast. I'm gonna have to edit that out.
that's fine.
I'm kidding. No. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
All right.
And then over the next few months after that, because he was a friend of a friend, um, he basically then proceeded to still like text and try to call me, um, just to talk or try and be friends, or whenever he was drunk and feeling sorry for himself or whatever it is. Like, it sucks that we can't be friends, and I remember saying, it sucks that you gave me herpes.
Yeah.
So
Do you think that he
yeah,
did that
that
just
made it.
do you think he did that just to like keep you like from telling other people? Did he just try and keep you as a friend and make sure, oh, hopefully you don't tell anyone else? Or was it genuine? Well, obviously, if he's just doing it while he was drunk, it wasn't genuine then, right?
Yeah, I think he just wanted to feel better about himself, like he wanted some kind of forgiveness or a pat on the back that, oh, you did this bad thing, but it'll be all right, it'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
But that was so far from the truth. I was a wreck at the time, and I was not going to shield that.
Yeah. Now, when you kicked him out, this was the last monogamous relationship you were in, correct?
No, it wasn't. wasn't.
Oh, okay. So what happened after this guy? You kick him out. Now you have herpes and you're single. What's next for Fleur?
Yeah. Um, so literally the next thing that happened is I started seeing a psychologist. I basically had close to a breakdown, just because the whole experience was so traumatic. Saw myself as damaged goods, and I didn't think myself worthy of anything from like a hug to a compliment to anything. Basically, I didn't feel worthy of like sexual contact, pretty much, that I was dirty. So I went to a psychologist for at least 6 months, and that kind of helped me move from the stage of self-blaming, self-pity through to anger and kind of starting to rebuild myself. Um, Relationship-wise, I eventually started seeing and dating other guys. And so my diagnosis was 2012. In 2014, I had my next sexual partner who I was open and honest with as well.
You didn't have sex for two
Basically,
years?
no, I didn't. I was full of shame and fear and self-pity. So yeah, it was a little while for me before I got confident enough. It wasn't that not so much that I didn't trust other people, it was that I didn't trust myself. So I got to a place where I felt a bit more comfortable and was basically comfortable being emotionally and sexually intimate with someone.
That's big. Like that's really big of you to be able to hold out and recognize why you're holding out. Like you knew that you were in
Yeah,
a vulnerable state and that it was good for you to recover yourself before bringing
yeah.
someone else into the madness, so to speak.
Mm. And in that time, I did a lot of like proper research, beyond good old Dr. Google. I saw my doctor a couple of times after that and just asked, if they had any good resources. And yeah, in that time, I got to know other people in my wider circle of friends that actually had herpes as well, the same type as me, or even, HSV1. And it
how
wasn't until
how
I
did you find
started
that
to
out?
turn the corner. Pardon?
How did you find out your friends had it? What did you eventually just tell them and then they opened up to you about it?
Yeah, it was kind of like that.
Hmm.
Yeah, there were just situations where, in my vulnerable state in that year or two after, where I would disclose just to friends, and be quite emotional. And then afterwards, one friend did come back to me privately and said, me too. And that was when I really started to turn a corner, because up until that point, I felt so isolated,
Mm-hmm.
so isolated within myself and from the world. So, yeah.
Okay. And when you told your other friends, now this is one that had it too, who came back to you later and said, me too,
Mm.
how did your other friends react to it? Were they cool about it? Were they judgmental? What did they step back from you or what?
The important friends were fine about it. I suppose it was just an element of shock, because I think for most people, I was the first person to have and live with an STD, and let alone disclose it.
Yeah.
So I think that was just, I was that first person for so many people. So quite a few people weren't sure exactly how to react, but their first question was always, "Are you okay?" or how you were going. So yeah,
Okay.
majority of people being very cool about it. There's been the odd person that I've kind of grown apart from, but
Yeah.
other reasons contributed to that as well. So it's not a big deal.
Yeah. And when people typically disclose to friends, I know that I've disclosed to, well, shit, like one by one, it always got easier to do. Would you
Yeah,
say
I
that it was the
agree.
same for you?
Yeah, definitely. Disclosing, I think, is a big deal and takes a lot of bravery, whether it's friends, family, or a partner, really. So I admire everyone who ever thinks about disclosing, because it's definitely the right thing to do. But it got so much easier, particularly with every single partner or boyfriend that I had after that as well. So practice does help make it easier.
That is good. That's good. Now, in dating, did you get a lot of rejections? You said you saw guys after your diagnosis and you were dating. Did you date outside of the herpes community?
Yeah, I did. So I wasn't exactly aware that there were, platforms like Positive Singles and stuff until about 2 years ago. So a majority of the time I was, yeah, dating outside the herpes community. And yeah, I met some really lovely guys. And as always, like, you disclose to partners and it's a deal breaker for them in one way or another. And as time has gone on, I understand that and respect it, and I greatly admire anyone who sits and listens through that tough conversation or is willing to listen. That is a very important step in
Hmm.
A, breaking stigma, and B, weeding out, the good eggs from the bad eggs in terms
Yeah.
of partners and stuff.
How did you disclose? Like, what was your formula for it?
Um, a couple of years ago, I was at a bit of a crossroads and a bit kind of frustrated by, I suppose, being rejected or it being a deal breaker for certain partners. And I went and saw a sex therapist or a sexologist. I don't know exactly what they're called. But yeah, and I said, I'm having trouble about the disclosing thing. And she said, well, okay, talk to me like, you would a partner. And I started, the word vomit. And she's like, my only bit of feedback is the person you tell will be your mirror. So if you are stressed or worried or, I don't know, sad or have very high emotions, then they'll sense that and they'll mirror that. So she said, just practice, maybe write it out beforehand, like one or two things that you want to cover, but keep it casual, like a coffee conversation. And she said, if you're relaxed, the person you tell will be a bit more relaxed
Hmm.
as well, because they'll see that you're a bit more at ease with it.
Hmm.
So I think that is the best bit of advice that I could pass on is the person you tell will be your mirror.
Hmm. So it's just like what when you say mirror, just to clear up any confusion that there could be with the listeners, what you're saying is you're looking at yourself essentially when you're disclosing to someone, the look on your face, the energy that you're putting off, that is what is on the other side of that disclosure. So if you're looking at yourself and you've got this grimace to you and there's a shakiness to your voice and your posture's not good, what you're putting off
Yeah,
is a lack of confidence, a little bit of shame in there, a little bit of guilt. And that other person's going to feel those negative emotions and then want to distance themselves because no one likes to feel ashamed, embarrassed, or guilty, or
yeah.
in any of those
Makes
negative
sense.
emotions.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. But in telling someone, yeah, say I have, in certain situations, I have been quite emotional, so, crying and a shaky voice when I have disclosed. And I suppose to those partners that things haven't progressed with, what I've learned from that is basically if I was crying and shaky voice and very like showing a lot of sad or negative emotions, then I suppose that magnifies maybe, ooh, that do they have something to really be worried about, and that kind of stirs negative emotions in them. That's just what I've learned.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So now when you go into it, what do you go into it calm? Do you go into it happy? Like, you're like, hey, I have herpes and this is awesome.
I try to be as calm as possible,
Uh-huh.
really. Um, the way in which I did it with my current partner was, I can't remember exactly what I said, but it was along the lines of I really like how this relationship or seeing you has been progressing. I'm keen to take things to the next level, and I'm I'm keen to take things to the next level. But before we do, I think you should know, or I think I would like to share with you this, that I have herpes. And it is a communicable disease and medicate much smaller risks, you know, if you, as a male, wear condoms and stuff, and just a few short, sharp facts. I don't really kind of lay on the big medical speak.
Yeah, like coffee talk. You gave him the coffee version.
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much.
And what was his
So,
response?
what was that, sorry?
And what was his response? Being that he's polyamorous and this is the first polyamorous person that you've been involved with, you know, I just imagine in that community, communication and honesty is very, very critical, and there's a higher value on being polyamorous with your partners, given the nature of the sexuality, sexual health. Um, what did he hit you with the, oh, let me get back to my other partners, I'll be back, or did he ask questions or what?
So it was face to face,
Mm-hmm.
and he just kind of said, okay, and, you know, nodded his head a few times and asked some questions, and he thanked me for sharing that with him. And I was really grateful for that. So for me, just having that thank you for sharing with me is just so valuable. So whatever had happened after that point, you can hear me getting emotional just talking about this. Whatever had happened after that point, like, you know, I got that thank you and I didn't have a negative reaction. So yeah, it was, he didn't say to me explicitly, you know, like, hang on, I'll just check with everybody else, but he did let me know later that after we started dating a little longer that yes, you know, he had mentioned it to his partner and other partners, and they did talk about it and discussed whether they were comfortable with it. um, I'd also like to put in there that sexual hygiene and sexual health is also a very big focus of the poly that I'm part of as well. We all get blood tests virtually every 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So we are very, very prudent about all that.
I mean, as you should be, especially if everyone's engaging in sexual activities with, you know, multiple partners, and everyone has their own lives. So, I mean, I'm just imagining that there's an agreement between everyone before moving on to, or before bringing anyone into the circle new, that there's a
Yep.
process. There's like a screening process. So, like, I did they all have to meet you? Was there like a initiation or something?
Uh, no.
Okay.
I think that was a conversation that they just had amongst themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and one thing I said when I disclosed to my current partner is that I was happy to answer any of his questions, and if any of the others, any of my metamors had any questions, that I was happy to answer them too. So I just wanted to finish on a note of openness
Yeah.
and comfort about it, and I think that helped the person I disclosed to be more comfortable, seeing that I was, you know, I had the knowledge, I was appearing to be at peace with it. So, yeah, I think that's an important thing to include as well.
It's been over a year, is that right?
Yeah, with my current partner, yeah.
Uh-huh. And I'm just curious how this conversation went, because like, you disclosed you have herpes. You've disclosed to this person who, to our knowledge, doesn't have herpes, and he's relaying this information. He's not the carrier, so he knows what you've told him and what additional research he's done, and then he was able to bring that to another group of people, you know,
Yeah.
comfortably, confidently, and say, hey guys, this is the risk. So I guess what I'm trying to figure out, which you have no way of knowing what he said, but just like the that's how easy it is to have this conversation. I mean, it's not easy for everyone, but the level of communication among partners, I imagine, is what made that so easy for him to receive that message from you and then relay that to a whole other group of people in a way
Yeah.
that they were all comfortable with understanding what the
Mm.
risks are.
Yeah, and my current partner still doesn't have herpes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I consider that a great success.
Oh yeah.
And everyone in my, I suppose, my immediate circle is aware of
Hmm.
the risks and stuff. But I myself medicate daily, and we always, practice safe sex. And I think that's been a great preventative.
Hmm. Now, safe sex. So I have a
Mm,
thing I say now that it's more so about safer sex, and I think that the safer sex really comes from the open and honest communication. I mean, on
mm,
top of any other risk reducing measures such as using condoms or dental dams and things like that.
mm,
Now, you guys, you're on the daily suppressive meds, is that right?
yeah,
And
that's
you've
it.
been intimate with him and only him
Yep.
for over a year now, and he hasn't contracted the virus. So that's, I mean, and how's his health, if you don't mind me asking? Is he doing anything to stay on top of his health or anything extra? Is he like super into fitness or?
Does what everybody else does, tries to get 8 to 9 hours of sleep, is active, and just eats well, really.
Mm-hmm.
We all try not to get too run down, and there have been instances where I've either been sick with anything from a winter flu, or just stressed or overtired, where I've just said, oh, you know, maybe not, just in case, not tonight, like just give me a few days. And just as a precaution, in some cases, I've just doubled my medication for a few days.
Right.
And yeah, that hasn't been a big deal because I've communicated that.
Good. So he and his partners understand the risk and they are all okay with the possibility of contracting herpes.
Yeah, I
Huh.
suppose. Or they wouldn't have, I suppose, accepted me in.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm just wondering, like, because there are instances where people don't fully understand, or it's kind of downplayed, I guess, by a person within the group. Like, oh, it's not that bad. I
Yeah.
know somebody with it.
It has crossed my mind that,
Yeah.
the what if my partner does end up with it, and I wouldn't be totally like nonchalant or totally okay with that. I would feel really bad, and I would feel shame over that.
Hmm.
But I don't have any control over that other than, what I already do for
Yeah.
myself. And I know that we together are doing the maximum amount that we possibly can to, prevent transmission.
Hmm. And I don't like say that to just put you on the spot, but there are people who legitimately get anxiety about this. And my philosophy is, okay, you've done your part and
Mm,
you've shared your own personal experience, your knowledge, and you've provided them with necessary resources to do additional research if they want to. Now, if you've done your part in communicating and you're holding up your end of the deal as far as taking the necessary risk reducing measures, then for other people out there, just this is important to understand. If your partner is okay with the risk, let them be okay with the risk after you've done everything that you can on your end as far as informing and
yeah.
educating them on uh, anything that's important, your personal health, like how often you get outbreaks or how you manage your condition and how they can go about it. And then just do your best to prepare them for it as well. Because there are people
Yeah.
who, live in that state of anxiety, just not even
Mm,
wanting to be with anyone who doesn't have it or thinks that a person who accepts the risk, like as if we're less than a person almost, because we're more so concerned in the beginning about a person accepting herpes
mm,
and then us more so than we are
yeah.
about them accepting us as people and then herpes. Does that make sense? I hope I said that the way that I think I said it.
Yeah, so herpes is this really strange thing. It's a significant yet insignificant fact about me, about you, about anyone
Mm-hmm.
living with herpes. You know, it's only significant to say us who live with it and maybe the partners that we've disclosed to. But it's also an insignificant fact at the same time. You know, having herpes doesn't stop me doing my job, doesn't stop me traveling, it doesn't stop me exercising, it doesn't stop me getting up in the morning. Um, at least now it doesn't. You know, so it's, you can still very much live with herpes. And I don't mean just going through the motions, you can still like really live and
Yeah, you
enjoy
can.
yourself.
Yeah, you can have a really fulfilling life. And I mean, think about all the people we don't hear from. Like just the people that we've had on this podcast. There's no way we would have heard from the majority of these people because I speak with people who have come to terms with it, accepted it, and are living their lives that just
Mm,
may so happen to be in a support group, and
mm,
see a post every now and then about me looking for guests. But it's that's how insignificant it is. And in the grand scheme of things, a lot of the people who come on here have come to that
mm,
terms of acceptance and have just been able to go on with their lives as if this doesn't
yeah.
have anything, like as if this is such a minimum part of their existence.
Yeah, pretty much. Um, yeah, I fully agree with all of that. Um, and I suppose if anybody is listening and they are struggling with that, is I want to say that you do get there and there is hope. I had really dark moments, and I'm sure you had really dark moments, Courtney, but it does get better. And don't focus on somebody else so much loving you, is you got to take the step and
Yep.
like really love yourself first. As stupid and cliche as that sounds, like that is how you kind of take the steps towards peace. And I really recommend connecting with other people that you know, support groups, anyone living with it, and that helps so much. You, when you don't feel isolated anymore,
Hmm.
that really helps.
Yeah, and I was telling people, I was just thanking the local support group here. We
Mm,
had gone on like a float trip, and uh, that was like one of the first times that I really got out there after having herpes because I've had it for 6 years. You and I didn't really talk too much about my own experience, but I've had it for 6 years, and up until a little bit over a year ago, that was when I found like positive singles, and that's when I found all these
mm,
local support groups, and it was like, wow, this is out here, and I didn't realize
mm,
how much of an inhibited life I was living until
yeah.
I was able to get out there and be around other people
Mm,
who I didn't have to worry about that thought in the back of my mind. So I agree.
yeah.
It does take that help and support, and it does take connecting with
Mm,
others and being able to really connect with yourself. And in your case, I think that
yeah.
seeing a therapist really helps you get that process
Mm,
going to understand, all right, it starts with me. And then you were able
yeah.
to go out into the world, even after 2 years of forced
Yeah.
celibacy.
Yeah. So what I saw my therapist for in the end was for cognitive behavioral therapy, so CBT. So I was basically kind of just treated for anxiety and yeah, just kind of that kind of an adjustment disorder.
Hmm.
Really, I think my doctor very loosely labelled it, um, just to be able to get out there and be more open. And I say getting out there, I don't mean sexually. I mean just getting out the front door.
Yeah.
Some days, you know. And I think the community groups that you've talked about sound really great.
Oh yeah, they are. They're very supportive, very good people, and I've come to find like you don't even need the support half the time. It's just a matter of knowing that there are people
Mm,
there, and like a lot of times
yeah.
we'll hit each other up for like I just asked the group like who knows an accountant because I have to get my taxes
Mm,
done, and it's like little things like that. Like it's completely irrelevant to
mm.
herpes, but
Yeah, so the way I've kind of communicated it to friends or talked about it casually with friends, my diagnosis is that, you know, depending on where you read, you could be 1 in 5 or 1 in 8 or whatever. Um, I think it's in the US or Australia. Anyway, 1 in 5 or 1 in 8 people live with HSV too. And when you think about that, it's like, oh, like, you know, that seems so high and so scary. But like, then I say, think about that in relation to the bus or train you catch to work every morning, the nightclub or bar you go to on Friday night, or like the big building you work in, or, you know, just walking down the street, you know, like 1 in 8 people. And you're really not that alone.
Not at
When
all.
you think about it in that context, it's quite amazing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, um, this is a good place to stop. I think we covered everything. Unless there was something else that you wanted to touch on. I think that the love yourself and you got to tell us about, your experience and going from monogamous to poly and disclosing to a discloser, and that it's
I
having that
had,
success.
sorry, I had a really lovely moment last year,
Hmm.
where a friend of mine, who knew that I lived with herpes, they ended up with the same diagnosis. They ended up with herpes as well, and they rang me and asked for support. And I was just in a shop change room at the time, you know. Um, and I was able to sit down and just, you know, ask the questions, you know, are you okay? How this happened? You know, have you taken these steps or this, that, and the other? And I was able to go really full circle in that moment 5 years later. And basically, I was able to be the person that I needed 5 years before. And that was a really, really nice moment to be there and support that person through that. So, yeah, I'm really at peace with my diagnosis now.
Hmm. And you'd say that that moment is really what made you understand that you were at peace when you were able to take your experience and help someone else get through their experience.
Yep, absolutely.
And you wouldn't have been able to have that opportunity had you not been open about your condition with this particular group of people or this person in particular, right?
No, I wouldn't have. And one of the things my current partner has said to me was the fact that I was open and disclosed was, you know, half the reason that he kept dating me. He admired my honesty.
Mm-hmm.
So
There's, yeah.
you never know. So yeah, I'm really grateful for both those experiences. And you know, you can hear my voice cracking again, and it's just reflecting on the vulnerability of that moment. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
happy I took the leap, and I'm happy I was brave.
The vulnerability, there's such strength in there, and there's so much like that's what we're drawn to as human beings. We're drawn to the authenticity of a person, and regardless of how challenging it may be to share a very, very vulnerable, sometimes shameful, negative emotion about yourself with somebody else, like that's a very powerful moment, and it
Yeah,
extends the opportunity to really connect. And that's what you did, and in doing that, you got you got a partner, and it's been going
yeah,
for a year. You've got a new lifestyle you're exploring, and it seems to be a lot of good that just came from it.
yeah. And the most important thing over the top of all that, you know, like partner or no partner, I accept myself, and that is the most important thing. Partners come and go. You know, even a little while back, I offered with one partner to actually take him to my GP, my general practitioner, and just have a conversation about it. But that particular partner wasn't willing to do that. Um, so you know, I've had no acceptance, and I've had acceptance,
Mm-hmm.
and the first guy I ever disclosed to, he fainted, which was horrible, but in hindsight, it's hilarious. So it's been a real mix of funny moments,
Talk
you
about
know,
setting the
loving
tone.
moments, some vulnerable moments, and some not so great moments, but
Yeah,
altogether, like, it's, yeah,
that
it's
would have.
been a character building experience.
That's good. That would have frightened me though. Like disclosing to the first person, they just pass out. Like, shit, is this what I have to look forward to going forward?
Oh, it was awful. Um, I've taken, you know, the time to, get up the guts to disclose to this person, and they've just gotten woozy and, had to lay them down and get them a glass of water and then make sure they were okay and then excuse myself. So it was horrible at the time. I'm pretty sure I cried walking back to my car, but it's funny now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I always say, like, it's not about what happens to us, it's about what happens through us. That person fainted, you had that experience, and that experience equipped you to be able to handle and accept what's going on
Yep.
in your life now. And look at us here now. Like, your story is going to help
Yep.
someone else because that happened. Someone's going to laugh at that. Someone's going to say, me too.
Yep.
And then someone's going to, get the whole overall message. And you are that mirror to somebody else, later on down their diagnosis. So I thank you
So,
so much for your time here and
thank
coming
you.
on to share. I appreciate you getting out of bed a little bit earlier today.
No, that's all good, Courtney. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it's been really therapeutic for me to share my story so publicly, and I hope that it helps someone.
Yeah, it
And I hope
will.
nobody faints when someone discloses to me.
uh, Thank you again, Fleur. I appreciate you being on here.
You're welcome, Courtney. Take care, my friend.
All right, you can say bye to the audience.
Bye, guys. Take care of yourselves.
That's it. That's all you got.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah,
it.
I guess
Stay
we
hydrated.
stay. That's good advice. All right, wash your hands after you pee. That's it. No, this concludes this episode of Something Positive for Positive People with Fleur. When you listen to this episode, if you haven't already, please take the time to like, rate, subscribe, review to the podcast. Please let us know what you think in the review section. This is really, really helping people to get connected with the resources and support that they need to get through their diagnosis. And we're at 5,000 downloads as of today, March 11th, 2018. I think it's the 11th. It's about to be the 11th. By the time y'all hear this, the 11th will have passed. But right now we're at 5,000 downloads. So that is incredible. And that is all as a result of you guys doing what you're doing. I'm going to continue to get this content up and rolling as long as people are willing to talk to me. And like I said before, this podcast has evolved and is evolving into a very useful tool for people who are newly diagnosed, for people who haven't had a chance to talk about their experience and really have a therapeutic experience getting this message off their chest and being able to help someone else. Just like Fleur said, it was a full circle experience where she realized how far she came when she was able to look back and when she was able to help someone through their diagnosis and look back and see herself in that person's position. So please continue to help us get this out to the world as we get more reviews and interactions and engagements on the podcast. The podcast players promote us. So as long as we keep that going, we're golden and people are going to always find this and get access to the resources they need. Until next time, stay positive.